Welcome back to the University of Queensland School of Architecture series introducing Rhino and Grasshopper. Now in the previous video we had a look at how to do a very simple section, but the limitation of it was that you didn't get any of the background detail. In this demonstration we're going to do a slightly more complicated approach to creating a section through our building, and to start what I'm going to do is just duplicate some of our guidelines by just dragging the guideline out side of the building. I'll drag this through here. I'll use my gumball to pull it through there, and then holding the Alt key down I'll pull it all the way over the other side. So I'm going to use these to create some planes. Okay, now in the display tab we can set up what's called a clipping plane. Now a clipping plane is basically going to cut effectively a section or a plan through our building. So I'm going to add a clipping plane. I'm going to do a clipping plane by 3 points. I'm going to do a start point and an edge point, and then I'm going to drag it out through here, and there we have our clipping plane. So if we do a shaded view, the clipping plane, we can't see it anymore, but we get a bit of a clearer view as to what we're going to get. Now we can then take an image or a representation of that view and then use that to export as a 2D drawing. To do that I'm going to have to do another step, and I'm going to set up a construction plane because I'm going to use a command called make 2D. And what make 2D does is to project the clipping plane onto the construction plane. So I'm going to set up the construction plane coincidental with the clipping plane. So I'm going to go into my corner through here, and under C-Planes tab I'm going to choose the 3-point construction plane. So I'm going to use the end of my guideline through here. I'm going to drag it out in the X direction here, and then drag it to the Y direction there. And you can see here it's set up a clipping plane, and that plane is parallel with the plane of that clipping plane that we've made. Now we're going to use what's called a make 2D. If we start off in the perspective view plane, and we'll dial up the command make 2D. We'll select objects to draw. I'm going to just do Control A to select all. And then before I press enter when done, what I'm going to do is in this view change, I'm going to set the view to plan. Now not the top, because the top is the top of the building. The plan is the plan view that I'm looking at through here. So I'm going to set it to plan view, and then I'm going to press enter. It's going to drop it into the current view, and I hit OK. Now the create 2D or make 2D is a bit of a sketchy command, and it's has sort of patchy outcomes. It does often take a long time for it to process depending on the complexity of the model. So in this instance I've edited out the waiting time, and if we come back to our perspective view, so right click on the arrow, set view perspective, you can see there's our plan through the clipping plane that we've made. Now one thing to notice is you can see here that we can see the edge of the slab, and the edge of the slab and the facade are kind of coincidental in this instance. Now if we do a section instead of a plan, cross-section through the building, you'll notice that we're going to encounter a few problems with using Make 2D, especially when we're applying them to meshes. So I'm going to just go Control Z. I'm going to get rid of that. And if we go to perspective, I'm going to go to my wireframe so I can see my clipping plane. And if we go back to display, the tab up the top here, you can see there's the selector to turn the clipping plane off. So left mouse click and click on the clipping plane, left mouse click. Select clipping plane, enter when done. And so that's turned off that clipping plane. Now I'm going to set up another clipping plane, this time through the middle of the building. And I'm going to add a clipping plane. I'm going to use a 3-point. My start of the edge is going to be my first vertical, second edge, second vertical, and the third is going to be the top. And there's our clipping plane through there. You can actually select that and use the gumball to sort of pull that back and forth as well if you like. Now I'm going to have to set the construction plane to be coincidental with that clipping plane so that we can save off this information. Now if we head down here, I'm going back to my construction plane, 3 points. There's my origin. I can use my clipping plane as a snapper. My first point, and then I'm going to clip to the top, and there you can see it's lining up with my clipping plane. Okay, so I'm going to do Make 2D again. I'm going to be lazy, I'm going to go select A. If I wanted to take the guidelines out, I can use my Control and just deselect them, the guidelines through there. I think I've deselected something else, but we'll come back to it. Now I've selected everything, but before I press enter when done, I'm going to change the view back to plan. Press enter, current view, OK. Waiting. Okay, so if we pull this back to perspective view, and I'm going to turn off my clipping plane, you can see I've got a section that shows the slabs, and it shows all of the columns and all of the different pieces. Well, actually it's just the columns in elevation. Now there's a bit of work to be done to interpret all of this information, and Rhino is probably not the best program to do that in, and it would be wise to then export this, bring it into Illustrator or AutoCAD or ArchiCAD, whatever you like, to then start improving the quality of the drawing. But you note though, it hasn't actually clipped through the mesh, so it won't actually pick up the mesh in a Make 2D. It's just the sort of nature of the geometry. So I'm going to undo that. So to overcome the problem of the mesh is I'm going to have to actually convert the mesh back to a NURB surface for it to register in this Make 2D. Now I'm going to help myself along by turning off, I'll turn back on the facades, turn off the default, and then I'm going to, I'll make facades my active layer, turn everything else off. I'm going to select all of that. There we go. So I'm going to do the command mesh to NURB, select polygon meshes, just going to select all of that, press enter when done, and it's created a new surface. let's go back to our guides. Going to turn all of these layers back on. Okay, and I'm going to do my make 2D command again. So I'll dial in make 2D. I'll select all my objects to draw. I'll just deselect some of these lines, and then I'll put it into plan. Press enter when done. OK, and it's waiting. OK, it's finished now. And if we go back to perspective, and I'm going to just set this, oops, it's already on wireframe, sorry. Display, I'm going to turn it off, and you can see our section now has our envelope shown on it, just as a single line, because that's all the geometry we've created for it. So turning off all of those, and in fact if we make 2D, it sets up a new layer as our primary layer. We have a drawing here, and as you go through and make different sections, you can then pull them off to the side and then just repeat the process for plans, cross sections and long sections. I'll just drag this further out of the way. And then once you've got them all, they'll all line up on the plan surface. You can then export that as a DWG and bring it into Illustrator or another CAD program. Now, don't underestimate the time it'll take you to go through and then edit all of the line weights to make this more intelligible, but with the geometry, base geometry there, it'll give you a good start. So that's the end of the ExampleTower videos. Be sure to check back for other information that will help complete the assignment.